Hello, this is Dylan Anderson from Codabears. Today I'll be covering accessing business objects in BPMs in Epicor 10.2.500. In today's demonstration, what I want to achieve is I want to create a BPM for when a user selects the Make Direct checkbox in the sales order entry screen. I want to automatically have a BPM create a job with a demand to this sales order line and release. So let's get started. I'm going to use my search here in Epicor to look up method directive maintenance. You can do that or navigate directly to it by going to the main menu, and then the method directive maintenance is located in system management and then business process management. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my method directive maintenance, and then I'm going to select my method code here. And then the business object that I want to use is sales order. Just so you know, the business object name is kind of in relation to each of the entry screens. So like there's one for PO or job entry. There's a business object called job entry or job. In this case, since it's a sales order entry, it's sales order. You can also get that information within a trace. So if you start a client-side trace and then trace operations within the sales order entry screen, you'll see in your trace file that the sales order business object pops up, and then you'll also see all the methods that it hits within your trace file. So the method that we're going to be using today on the sales order business object is called update. So I'll go ahead and type update in here and then hit enter or click search to search. And then it's the first option here, update. So the update method gets called when the user hits the save button on the sales order entry screen. So on my method here, we're going to start a new preprocessing directive. And in this directive, basically we're going to capture when the user is checking that make direct checkbox. So I'm going to call my BPM here, make direct checked. This name could be really anything you want, but I'm just going to call it make direct check just because it makes sense. And then I'm going to go ahead and click the design button here to start designing my preprocessing directive. So within my preprocessing directive over here to the left window pane, I'm going to drag and drop the condition object. And then in my condition object under properties in this designer, I'm going to click on the paper icon to begin a new condition. Then I have a drop down here. When I click this drop down, I'll have several options. The option that we are looking for this demonstration is the specified field has been changed from any to another. So I'm going to select that. And then each of these blue links, you can set either like a value or a field in this case to your condition. So I'm going to select the specified link here, and then the table that I'm going to go to is the order release table, and then the name of the field is called make, and you can figure that out also by going to the sales order entry screen, and then this time go to help and then field help, and then select on your make direct checkbox, and then you'll see in the field help the application details that it's tied to a database binding or a database field called orderrel.make. So once I have make selected here as my field, I'm going to click OK. That updates that specified link to say orderrel.make. Field has been changed from any to another, so I'm going to select on any, and I'm going to uncheck the any value, and then I want my value from false to true. So I don't want this BPM to necessarily trigger my post. I'm going to create a post-processing BPM after this BPM is created, and basically I don't want my BPMs to trigger when the user is unchecking the box. I only want the job to be created when the user is checking the box. So in my pre-processing BPM here, I'm going to go ahead and grab from the start here. As you can see, there's these little triangles. If you grab one of the triangles, you can drag it and drop it onto your object. So it's like a flow chart. So when the BPM starts, we're going to trigger the condition object. And make sure that when you're connecting your objects for the condition object, that you drag and drop from the start to the top of the object, or from another object to the top of the condition object. That is because if you drag it here or here, your BPM is not going to work right, because the left and right side, the left side of the condition is for when your condition is true, and the right side is for when it's false. And so basically, whatever I put on the true side, so whenever the user selects checks the make direct checkbox, we're going to process everything on the true side. Nothing on the false will be processed here unless if the user basically doesn't change that value. So we only want to trigger our BPMs for when the user is checking that checkbox. So in the left window pane here, I'm going to drag and drop the enable post directive. And then I'm going to drag the true side of the condition, the little triangle, to my post directive, and it could be anywhere on that post directive since it's not a condition. So basically, when the sales order entry screen, somebody clicks save, it's going to run this BPM. The BPM is going to hit the condition object here, and then basically check to see if that make direct checkbox is true or was changed from false to true. Then it's going to trigger a post directive. So we're going to hit save. We're done with our pre-processing directive for now. So we're going to hit save. I'm going to hit save again. I'm going to go ahead and enable it. And then I'm going to go to File, New, and then this is where we're going to do a post-processing directive. And our post-processing directive is actually where we're going to write some code to create the job. So in our post-processing directive here, you can name this whatever you want. Again, I'm going to call it make direct job. And then I'll hit save. I'll go ahead and click on my design here to start designing my post-processing directive. So you get pretty much the same or similar window with the same sort of objects here in your post-processing directive. So I'm going to drag and drop my conditional object here, again attach my start to it, and then on my conditional object here I'm going to begin a new condition by clicking this paper icon here under the property section. And then again I have this drop down here, and the reason why we created a pre-processing value is to trigger our post-processing when that make direct checkbox is checked. There is likely more than one way to do this. However, this is just the way that we're going to do it for this demonstration, and it's a rather simple and straightforward way. So the option that we're looking forward here is this directive has been enabled from the specified directive. So we're going to select that option, and then again select our little blue link here. And as you can see, you'll get a window like this, and then another drop-down menu, and then make direct checked, which is the name of our pre-processing directive. So we're going to select that. So once that enables basically this post directive, it's going to trigger some code by triggering this execute custom code object from the left window pane here. We're going to drag and drop that onto our design, and then attach the conditional true to the execute custom code. I've gone ahead and pre-written all the code for this video. So I'll copy and paste my code here and then walk you guys through it. So in my code here at the top here, I'm defining a variable. I'm calling it order rel, and basically this is storing the entire order rel transactional data. So anytime you make a change to a release, that record or that row goes into this table within your BPM. If you change, say, 2 releases at the same time when you hit save, both of those release rows or records will be inside of this table object. So because of that, since it is a collection of rows and there could technically be more than one change, and you might have selected make direct on more than one row, we're going to do a for each loop in C# here. So for each rel, which is release, so for each release in the order rel variable, the first thing we're going to check is if the release.make flag is checked. So if make direct is checked, we're then going to create a job for that release. So I'm also declaring a few variables here. The first one's a string company. So I'm grabbing the company on that release record, order num, order line, order rel num, and these are all fields on the release record. In Epicor 10 and BPMs, we do sort of have like an IntelliSense, and you can access that by typing basically your variable or your object that you're using, rel, and then do period, and then if you hit control and space, once you hit control and space, you'll have a list kind of appear like this, and in our case this is a list of all the fields available for our release. So I'm going to go ahead and erase that because we don't need anything else in our code. And then the next thing after defining those variables, I did a C# link statement here So from JP, so this is like another variable. This can be anything you want. Some people put row, some people just put J or something like that. So then in DB, so DB is the object to access the job prod or any table in the database basically. So my BPM is accessing the job prod table. The job prod table houses the demands. So if you go into job entry and do field help within the demand section, you'll see that it's using or referencing the job prod table in your field help. So, and then where, so I want to check where a record in job prod is equal to the company. Job prod order num is equal to that order num line and release. And basically what this is checking is with first or default here, it's going to either return a row or null. If there's no row found following these conditions, then it's going to be a null, and then that's why I have my if statement here. So basically what I'm checking here is to see if there's a job out there for this order line and release. I don't want to create or have two jobs tied with the demand to the same order line and release. I only want to create when it doesn't exist and when that make direct checkbox is checked. So as long as nothing is returned from that link statement here, we're then going to initialize our job service here in a using statement. So another variable again, job service equals, and then in BPMs to access business objects, you would do the ice.assemblies.service-renderer.getService, and then you will then put a less than symbol, ERP.contracts dot, and then that business object that you're accessing. In this case, we're accessing the job entry.service contract. If you do the IntelliSense, you'll see that available there once you have it as a using reference. So if we did check syntax right now, it would probably send us a bunch of syntax errors because we actually don't have a reference for our job entry service contract yet. But we'll add that after I'm done walking you through this using statement here. So, and then in parentheses, we have to put in the DB object, which is, again, initialized by the BPM. We don't have to initialize that. That's already there and available to us. So putting that in there, we then have our using statement, and then we can use the methods within the service within our using statement. So, again, back to the usings and references. So basically, a BPM, like for sales order, is not going to have or not going to reference the job entry service contract by default. That's where our button down here, using references, comes in handy. If we click on this button and then go to references, we'll have to select add because we don't have anything in here that says job. So if we select add here, and then using our assembly filter, I'm just going to type in ERP.contracts, and that's because I know what it is. But so most of your business objects are going to be that you're going to pull into a BPM if you're accessing a business object is going to be ERP.contracts.bo or ice.contracts.bo. So I'm going to type, just to get there faster, JOB, and see what kind of job business objects we have. So like job closings available. The one that we want is job entry. So just like a user, you could also do a trace file to figure this out. If you start a trace file, just create a job and then view your trace file. And then in your trace file, it'll show you the business objects and the methods within the business objects that all get hit. So I'm going to select the job entry one here, double click on it, or you can click OK, and then you can double check here under the assemblies. You have erp.contracts.bo.job entry. So when you're typing this out and you do your, once you have a reference added and you're typing the erp.contracts dot and then hit control space, you'll then actually finally be able to see job entry service contract. So then within our using block here, which a block is defined by these brackets, so an opening and a closing bracket, so this is when the block ends, this is where it starts. So within the using block, I then define the erp.tablesets.job entry table set. And this is just me defining a variable type. So the job data, so this is in the job entry table set. And the reason why I'm defining the type here instead of just doing the var, you could do a var type, or you could do the job entry table set. However, when you're trying to do the var, when you're using the IntelliSense, you might not be able to see all of the available properties to you or methods. So I'm defining a job data variable type of the job entry table set, and then I'm declaring that this is a new job entry table set. And the reason why I'm doing that is, again, your trace file, you would see a method when you do a trace on manually creating a job in the job entry screen. You would see that within your trace you have a dot or get new job head method, And then, so we're basically calling that, replicating that in our code here by using the service contract. So job.service or jobService.getNewJobHead, our method here, and then in the parentheses, we have to reference the job data, and that's also apparent in our trace file. And also, if you just did an open parenthesis and close it, and you hit check syntax, you'll get an error similar to this. And you can see in the error here, .getNewJobHead, basically in this parentheses, it wants us to reference the job entry table set. So that's how I know, really, by trial and error kind of, or check syntax, or in the trace file, that I need a parameter inside of my getNewJobHead method. So I'm going to put ref job data back in here. Job data is our job entry table set that we initialized above. So once this method gets called, basically, as you can see in the trace file, Epicor will automatically, or this method will put the data inside of your job data variable up here. So right now it's blank up until we call this getNewJobHead. So now we have a new job head record, or a new job record. This would be the equivalent in going to job entry file and then new job. We would be at that stage in our code here. So, and then once we have a new job head record, we can then begin to fill out values the same way. Like if you were to manually type in job entry, the job number, the part number, we're going to do that same thing here. So job data, so our table set here, .job head, and then job head is again a collection. Technically, Epicor allows you to have more than one record. However, in my just testing and trial and error, I found that on most header records in Epicor, it's always going to be 0, especially when you're doing like a get new and you're starting like a new one. As long as you're doing a get new on a new, like fresh table set, you will always start at index 0. So I'm setting the first record, which is index 0, and then the field.job number to this format. The job number is a string format. It's not like a numerical format, so it does allow you to have dashes, think even letters and things like that. So I'm doing a string.format, and then 0 again. So these are indexes. So index 0, 1, 2, and then dash dash. So basically, as you can see in my string format here, I have a comma and then order num, and that's that variable up here. So basically, order number will go in the 0 index because this is the 0 index. Whatever you put after there first will be that 0 index, and then 1 will be order line, and then 2 will be order rel num. So basically, I'll have a job with the order num dash order line dash order rel num, and then we also need to fill out part number. Again, this shows up in the trace log. If you check track changes only in your trace log, and once you create the job manually through job entry, you'll see that we need to set the part number. So again, I'm setting the part number to basically the part number on the release. So rel.partNum, that's coming from our object here since we didn't store it in the variable. And then also in your trace file, you'll see that you will need to do a change job head part num. So anytime you set a part number to a job, you have to run this method so that it gets updated or everywhere else. So referencing that job data table set again, you can see that that parameter is required either through the check syntax way that I just showed you earlier, or in your trace file you can see that it requires this parameter. And then after that we changed our part number, we need to set the revision number. Again, I'm pulling that off the release, and then the plant. In this database, we're one plant, one company that I'm using here for this demonstration, so I automatically set that to an FGSys. If you were multi-plant, you would want to actually use your rel or somewhere that stores the plant, and then put that to have that plant be whatever's on the release or the order, or you can actually the call client context. If you right-click in a BPM, you have call context is available here. You could do call client context and then dot like current plant to get whatever plant the client is currently logged into. So then once we've set that, we're going to go ahead and call an update, which is typically what you would do if you'd click the save button after you assign a job number, a part number, a revision. And I think the plant normally gets automatically set in our for the code purpose. In the trace file, it shows that we needed to set it, so I'm setting it in the code. So once you hit save, Same thing here. We're just replicating what the user would typically do, but we're basically automating that process. So after the update, so now I have a job record with the order num-line-release. I then want to add a demand to my job. So after update, we have a new job record. Then we're going to do get new job prod method. Again, this shows in your trace file that I keep referring back to. And then the parameters in the trace file or again through the check syntax way, what's required is you have to reference a table set variable. So the job data, again, we're referencing that, comma, and then it required the job num, the job part num, and then the rest of the parameters are 0 when I did this in the trace file, which is fine because we're technically setting all those other parameters. Like this one I think is order num, order line, order release. Just like in the trace file, I just kind of copied the trace file into code here. And then I'm just like the trace file, I'm filling it out later. I'm not too sure why Epicor does that, but I wanted to make sure my code worked exactly the same way, so I basically typed it word for word. You could try an experimenting by inputting like an order num, order line, and release within these parameters here. As you see in the trace file, that is what these three are. But just for this demonstration, we're going to stick to basically exactly how the trace file and how Epicor operates today. So, and then on the job prod table this time, again, it can be a collection. Not too sure why. I assume that somewhere in Epicor they do load more than one job prod, or they might not. However, again, once you're doing a get new kind of method here, this is creating a blank record. So at index 0, you can only have one demand per job anyway. So at index 0 of the job prod dot make to type, we're setting the make to type order because this is not like a to inventory or to stock. We're doing this because there's an order, so we're then going to call the change job prod make to type. Again, in the trace file, it shows that's required, so we're adding it here, and again, we're referencing that job data table set that we declared up here earlier in the code. And then we have to set the order number. Again, change job prod order number showed it was required to be called inside of the trace file, so I add it there. Same thing with the line. And then this one required an additional parameter, which was an outstring. So basically, I think this outstring basically will throw a message in there, like if there's an error or something like that, you can have that thrown into an email in a BPM, or like since this is a method directive, you could do it like a message box, things like that. But I found each test or each trace that I was doing, it was really just throwing a blank string. So I'm just kind of leaving it alone because I don't really need to display that. Epicor will error out and show you the errors if there's any errors between these methods when you check that make direct flag, just like it would if you're in the job entry screen. So you're still going to get the same errors regardless as Epicor would throw. So then next, again, the order rel num, change order rel num, same thing. So now we set the demands order num, order line, order rel num at this point, and then we're calling an update again. So now we're saving it, basically saving it, putting in the database. So if you don't call this update, it'd be the same as like hitting the clear button before hitting save. It's not saved, you're not going to find that record in your search and job entry. So we called the update, and then lastly, I wanted to call the get details. So if my part number has manufacturing or like a bill of material tied to it, created by engineering in the engineering workbench, we're going to get all that manufacturing method details here. So then after we get the engineering details, we're going to call the update again just to be on the safe side to make sure we're saving our job. So once you have all your code right, and then you hit check syntax again, make sure your syntax says it's okay. If it doesn't, you'll have your errors down here and address those errors. And then now that the code's right, I'm going to click OK. So basically, we're going to, once the post-processing directive starts, it's going to check this condition. If the pre-processing directive ran and hits that enable post-processing object, it'll then run our custom code here. So I'm going to hit save, close out of the workflow designer. I'm going to enable this, hit save, and then I'm going to just click back on the make directive. Okay, so both our pre-processing and post-processing are enabled. So now let's go ahead and test our BPMs. So let's go back to our sales order here on sales order entry screen. This is just a sales order that I'm using in the system. So as the BPM is designed, once I check the make direct checkbox, and then I hit save, calling that update method is going to hit my BPMs. And if you want to get creative, at the end of your post processing, you could add another object, show message, in your BPM to show a message when a job has been created and output that job number. So let's go ahead and go into our job entry screen here, and then it should create a job for 5375-1-1, so line 1, release 1, just like we designed it. And look, there's a job. There's our part number. Here's our make to order demand. And so now we have successfully created and accessed a business object, the job entry business object inside of a BPM.